Don't you feel it too? Your soul is brimming with inspiration and it's potent with the energy to finally create the life that you want. Today, I'll be taking you through the ways that I have been glowing up and elevating myself physically, mentally, and spiritually to become my highest self for the remainder of 2025. I'm not playing around anymore, and neither should you. Hola, my beautiful souls. Welcome back or welcome to my channel, where we merge the cosmos with everything self-development to become our highest selves every day. If that sounds like something you're interested in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. That way you don't miss future videos like this one. And if you want more from me, you can follow me outside of YouTube on social media. The links are in my description, and download my free astrology cheat sheet, which makes astrology so much more digestible for you. Without further ado, let's elevate. Before you follow anything else in this video, I need you to reorganize and realign your physical environment. I know you've heard it time and time again, and you're going to continue to hear it time and time again. If you've ever grown complacent in your space and then you move furniture around, you reorganize it and you redecorate it, and then you feel like this warm light of inspiration spark within you just reorganizing and moving the energy in your environment to a place that is more cohesive with your energy, to a place that is more in alignment with you. You have now reinvigorated your space with energy that inspires you. Your physical environment is like your nest. It's where you nurture yourself. And if your physical space, your physical home is not in alignment with you, you're going to struggle so much to actually instill discipline, inspiration, have any motivation, stay organized. The list goes on. It is the root foundation that creates a positive or a negative domino effect on every other area of your life. This is why it is key that you start with reorganizing your space. Something I did is I got a bookshelf. I had this intuitive pull inside of me that was like, you need to get a bookshelf. You need to get a bookshelf. Because for those of you that don't know, I have a roommate. My little tiny room is my only space to myself. It's the only space where I can keep everything that I own. So the books that I had on my bookshelf, they were just scattered all over my room, and it was stressing me out. I felt like I could not be productive and at peace in my environment until I organized those books, especially because I felt called again to get back into reading more spiritual self-development books like I used to. And we will talk more about that later on in the video. I still look at that bookshelf and get such a warm, fuzzy feeling. The way that it has changed my room for the better, it has added more organization, which means that my head and my mental space is much more clear. I feel so much more clarity around my productivity, especially because being able to see my books laid out that way is so inspirational. All in all, it cleared up so much energy within myself to organize my space and realign it with myself moving forward. Also energetically resetting your space. My favorites are Palo Santo and Sage, and I tend to only use Sage during big purges in my life. And so I did actually use Sage after setting up the bookshelf and reorganizing my room. I personally did because it felt kind of like my closing ritual for my Saturn return. Palo Santo is a lighter energetic cleanser. It's not as hefty. It doesn't do as much heavy lifting as Sage. So for me, it feels better as a more routine energetic cleanser. So that's the one that I will use periodically, maybe weekly when I clean my room, when I clean my space. I also make sure that when I energetically cleanse my room, I open the door, I turn on my fan, I open the window, because you want the energy to actually have a flow and have somewhere to go. It needs to be able to exit your room. Otherwise, everything's just stagnating. Not to mention you have the smoke coming off of the Sage and the Palo Santo. You don't want that culminating in your room. You want the airflow to be letting everything out accordingly. Then I like to light an incense. I personally have these two incense from a brand that I love. I have the Prosperity one and the Goddess one. Whenever I'm clearing my space for the sake of productivity especially, I love to light the Prosperity incense. incense after I have energetically cleansed, after I have cleaned, and that kind of just sets the tone. I feel like I'm setting the atmosphere moving forward. Your second step before we get to the really fun stuff is to review your 2025 goals, then reevaluate and realign your goals for the next 6 months. Figure out what you want to prioritize because you can't actually realign your habits like we're going to talk about in the rest of the video. You can't really do that if you don't have a clear goal in mind, if you don't have clear priorities. Having them on paper will allow you to have a reference point, or maybe not on paper, but in a digital space that you reference, maybe in your planner, wherever it is that resonates for you. Putting down your priorities for the latter half of the year will help you know what habits you need to prioritize and how you can realign yourself to actually make those goals a reality throughout the remainder of 2025. I personally have a Pinterest board labeled 2025 Vision Board, and it's broken up into different categories such as health, body, fashion, finance, etc. I'm ashamed to say I have not been in this board in months, but that happens to all of us, right? That's why we do this mid-year reset. So that way we can get back on track and remind ourselves what we're doing it for. So I will sift through my 2025 vision board on Pinterest and I will see what still aligns, what stands out to me, what sticks out energetically. Whatever really stands out to me is something I need to prioritize. So while I'm going through my 2025 vision board on Pinterest, I'm going to have a bullet point list where I'm writing down the things that stand out to me. Then, once I have figured out what stands out to me and what I really want to hone in on, let's say the most common example is your fitness goals. I have certain body, fitness, and health goals that I always put in my vision board. So I'm going to focus in on that. I'm going to say, okay, in my vision board, I had women with abs, for example. How do I want to prioritize making that a reality for the remainder of 2025? What habits do I need to instill? What do I need to work on? Maybe I realize I have bloating in the gut, or I suspect that I'm bloated. So I need to focus on, first and foremost, reducing my gut bloating, because if I don't, I will not be able to have abs. My abs would never show. What can you start doing to get to that goal? What micro steps can you take to start getting to that goal? If you have not read the book Atomic Habits, I highly recommend reading Atomic Habits. It is the book that changed my life when it came to productivity, prioritizing my goals, and actually being able to instill habits that stick to make my goals happen. Maybe your next micro habit is, after you've gotten the gut on a better playing field, you start instilling daily walks, because walking flattens your stomach and also helps your gut and digestion. So if you start going on walks, start with maybe 4,000 steps a day, then up it to 5,000, then up it to 6,000, etc. Reviewing your goals and figuring out what habits you want to focus on instilling for the next 6 months in order to achieve that goal is vital before you continue on into actually trying to reset your life and start on new habits. Oh my gosh. Later, Marisa here, because I realized I forgot to mention how important visualizing your new priorities for the remainder of the year is so important, and something that I have been doing. So when you realign with your goals and your priorities for the remainder of 2025, you want to start doing a daily visualization meditation. It can just be 10 minutes long. I'll put my favorite ones in the description as well. But these visualization meditations keep you aligned with what your new goals are and your priorities. It keeps them at the forefront of your mind and allows you to stay in alignment with what those are every single day. So I usually do my visualization in the morning and at night. I do one for the morning time and there's one while I fall asleep. I'll leave them both down below. But those are how you spiritually align your energy with the goals that you have in mind. And it doubles as manifestation energy that is also attracting those things to you as you align your frequency with them. The third way that we are going to elevate ourselves physically, mentally, and spiritually in 2025 is to work on our commitment to discipline rather than our overindulgence in pleasure. This point is totally inspired by an episode of the Diary of a CEO podcast that I was listening to. I believe it's called The Dopamine Expert. I will have it linked in the description. I highly, highly, highly recommend listening to that yourself. It is so relevant to this day and age that we live in, where we are overindulging in pleasure. A lot of the reason that we fall off of our goals and we fall off of having the discipline and the self-respect to make our goals happen is not because we're lazy, not because we have some inherent laziness gene. It's because we are overindulging in pleasure all the time. And this is not entirely our fault. Our society is constructed around rewarding us constantly for everything. And we romanticize overindulgence in pleasure.
Oh, just eat that food. Just have that drink. Life is hard enough.
Whereas this is sometimes true. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like a little drinky drink every now and then, but that's not the point. We're doing it too much. We're doing it so much and giving ourselves too many allowances to the point that we don't have any of the grit and the self-respect and the discipline that we need to make our lives a life worth living. Again, I highly recommend going to listen to that podcast episode, but I will kind of recap the overall concept here so you can understand just how important this information is to changing your life. The basic concept is that indulging in too much pleasure damages the dopamine receptors in our brain. The way that we intake dopamine, the way that we respond to dopamine, we have pleasure receptors and pain receptors in the brain. And the reason that we have dopamine connected to pain receptors in our brain is to drive us to do harder things, because if we had no drive to do harder things, we would not survive. But we also need the drive to do things that give us pleasure in order to survive. So if we go back to the caveman days, for example, when we needed to hunt for our food, we needed some type of rewarding, pleasurable feelings attached to obtaining the prey. They get a feeling of being triumphant and successful when that happens, and that's what continues to motivate them to hunt, but it also gives them the drive and the will to live. Now, when it comes to pleasure receptors and why those exist to keep us going, if we didn't receive any amount of pleasure from reproduction, for example, the act of reproducing, we may not reproduce. We need to actually associate certain activities with pleasure, such as reproduction, in order to actually reproduce. If we had no dopamine connected to that and we had no pleasure connected to that, we would not be driven to reproduce, which is key to our survival. So all of this goes back to survival. However, we are not living in survival mode anymore. If anything, we have such a gratuitous culture where we overindulge all the time in things that are not good for us just because we can. We are overindulging the pleasure receptors in our brain and damaging the way that our dopamine receptors work. Because we are overindulging in pleasure, we now rely on increased pleasure to feel dopamine. When we are not having some heightened amount of pleasure, whether it be through food, through drugs, other things, it could be a bunch of things. When we're not engaging in a heightened, unnatural amount of pleasure, we feel an unbearable amount of pain because our brain is trying to reach homeostasis. It's trying to reach a balance between the pain and the pleasure. When your brain is now over-reliant on unnatural forms of pleasure, such as scrolling on our phone and things like that, we now have an extreme imbalance where we have so much indulged the pleasure that the pain is unbearable. The pain receptors are unbearable for us. That's why there's something called a come down. When people come down from a drug, for example, and the come down can throw them into a depressive state because your brain is going so far to the pain receptor side of things to try and balance that unnatural amount of pleasure that we just received. This zaps our inspiration because our brain is addicted to searching for the next amount of pleasure, even if it's unhealthy for us. This sounds really dramatic, but this can literally look like you turning into a potato on your bed and scrolling through your phone for hours because your brain is looking for the dopamine hit of scrolling through the videos and getting some type of pleasure from that. The way to combat this is to actually engage in painful activities. And I don't mean painful as in things that literally physically cause you pain. I mean engaging in productive pain, such as going to the gym. A lot of times our brain wants to go for what's easiest. It does not want to go for what is most difficult. We need to become conscious of this. And now that you're conscious of it, because I told you about it, you know that when you are feeling unmotivated and lazy and you just want to grab your phone, you just want to turn on the TV, or you just want to binge eat those sweets, you can recognize the scientific, neuroscientific reasoning behind that. And now you can combat it. You're like, okay, I need to consciously engage in productive pain. Pain that allows me to feel triumphant at the end of it. Because once we indulge our pain receptors, so say we go to the gym and we run on the treadmill, we lift some weights and it's painful, it's hard, but in a good way. We know we're challenging ourselves. This causes our brain to now try and reach balance by engaging the pleasure receptors. So that is why after a hard workout, even though during the workout we're dying and we want it to end, at the end of the workout, you never regret it. You never regret working out. You only regret not working out. And the reason you never regret working out is because now your pleasure receptors in your brain are going wild, trying to bring you back to homeostasis. And you have now successfully hacked the neuroscience behind your laziness. And the more that you build this productive pain discipline, the more that you do the hard things that are good for you, but you just have to push yourself to do them in the moment, the more you build your pleasure receptors, the happier you're going to become, the more motivated you're going to become. And because you're going to directly experience that pleasure, that dopamine pleasure in your brain, you're going to continuously become more and more motivated to actually do the hard things. And this is going to bleed into every area of your life. I recommend starting small. Again, it's all about micro habits. So the way that I started is I kind of strayed away from going to the gym so much, but I was letting myself become very lazy and stagnant in the mornings and in the evenings. And my gut was really bloated and I was having digestion issues. So I was like, okay, I just want to lounge in bed in the mornings before I go to work, or I want to lounge in bed at night after I eat dinner. But what if I just start going on walks, even though I don't want to? And I can start with a super small walk. Just put on my shoes and take a walk around the block first thing in the morning or after I drink my morning tea. That turned into a habit that I now depend on. And it has changed my body so much. It has changed my mental state so much. And it has continued to reinforce the pleasure receptors in my brain because it feels good. I know I'm doing something good for myself and I'm seeing all the benefits of it, which dominoes into more motivation to do the good things for me that seem a little hard at first because I know what the payoff is. Kind of piggybacking off of the last point, I want you to focus on regaining power of your mind. This is going to be key in regaining your mental strength, mental fortitude, and mental clarity to move forward. If we don't have control of our minds, we're not going to be able to move forward in the way that we want. The way that I have been doing this is I have been focusing on meditating more often. The specific type of meditation I've been doing has been a breathwork meditation that makes me pull back into the present moment. We may not realize just how much we are controlled by external things such as our phones. Our phones is probably the most relevant example, so that's the one I'm going to use. The reason we're uncomfortable with meditation that tries to return us to the present moment is because our mind is constantly telling us to reach for the phone, to reach for the habitual things that we're used to having. And your mind, since it creates neural pathways based on information that it has intaken at various points in time, You have trained your mind, and now your mind has control of you because it wants you to stick to the habits. It wants you to eat by a certain time. It wants you to grab your phone when it expects you to grab your phone, etc. It wants you to work on its time. Basically, your mind is trying to control you to live your life habitually, to save energy, to survive because it's comfortable, it's easy, etc. Meditation that challenges you to come back to the present moment, especially with breath work, is a beautiful way to regain control of your mind. Because the moment that you think to yourself like, oh, I want to grab my phone and I wonder what's going on and I'm missing out on these emails and these texts and these posts, it's once you recognize that happening in your mind and you're able to pull yourself back, practicing that reinforces the control you have over your brain. It brings autonomy back to yourself rather than letting everything external control you. Because once you meditate like this, you're going to realize how many external things control you. You start compulsively thinking about the things that you need to do, the things you should be doing, the breakfast you want to be having, the coffee you want to go pick up from your favorite coffee spot. But instead, you're sitting there meditating and your body hates it. Your brain hates it. Your brain does not want you to fight it. It's like, I know what's best for you. I know what's easiest. Just listen to me. And your brain means well, but we need to have control. We are not our brains. Our brain is just part of the complex system that keeps us alive, but it is not who we are. We need to regain autonomy over the mind if we hope to actually reset and realign in a way that achieves all our goals in the future. Next, I challenge you to practice creating more than you consume. One way that I've been doing this is I have been posting my thoughts on TikTok. I am a yapper, okay? And a lot of times I started feeling caged in by YouTube because I always felt like every video I released had to have a very clear point, a very clear structure, and the edits had to be perfect, the way I speak had to be perfect, the way I look had to be perfect. But when I got on TikTok, it felt so freeing for my spirit and for my creative spirit especially, because I realized that I could go on TikTok with no makeup or putting on makeup, messy hair, whatever. I could show up however and just share a thought. On TikTok, it's like I was practicing freeing myself from all the expectations. Those expectations we place upon ourselves really kills our creativity. But what kills our creativity even more is canceling out our own unique thoughts, our own unique creativity with everybody else's. Because we are such a consumer-based society, we consume to the point that we lose ourselves in our consumption. We lose our own opinions, our own style, our own intellect. We lose everything and we trade it for other people's. We let other people's ideas fill our void when we should be filling it ourselves. Practicing expression through mediums that feel resonant for you is a wonderful way to realign yourself with inspiration. Part of my mid-year reset was to make sure I was regaining creative spark and creative joy, because that's a huge thing that I had lost throughout my Saturn return. Throughout the first half of this year, I've been trying to slowly rediscover it. And part of that is practicing my creative expression, my own unique expression that comes from me, not from anybody else. Practicing not over filtering it. We can also over filter ourselves because we consume so much that we think we have to show up a certain way. So instead of showing up how we do authentically in our own daily lives, we put on a facade based on what we perceive other people to want. Say we have a certain set of creators we follow that are really big, really popular. We can maybe unconsciously be putting on pieces of their personalities because we think that'll make people like us more. So we start over filtering our own creativity, our own uniqueness, because we are putting on all these other personas that we think people are going to like better than our own. So I challenge you to start creating from an authentic space without over questioning yourself, without over planning, without over consumption of others. This will look different for everybody. Like I said, for me, TikTok has been a wonderful outlet because my voice is a huge focus of my life. I know that it's my gift. So I need to practice authentic creation through my voice. For you, it might be instilling a hobby that gets you back in touch with that creative joy. You know what it looks like for you, but this is key if you want to create the life of your dreams. Once we start getting back to ourselves, now we want to start expanding ourselves by regularly stretching and changing our own beliefs, thoughts, knowledge. By consistently learning new information and expanding our own worldview and our own perspective, we not only improve ourselves and create new neural pathways that make us smarter, but we also realign with our own beliefs. The more perspectives that we're exposed to, the more accurate of a belief that we can form for ourselves. A lot of times, kids who grew up in a stable household and in the same home, in the same hometown, they don't start to really discover themselves until they actually go out in the world, until they actually have jobs in the workforce and they meet various people from different paths in life. And why is that? That's because they're being exposed to new ways of life that expand their mindset. And because they have that experience, they're able to form a more accurate, aligned worldview for themselves, making them a deeper, more complex individual to engage with. Getting in touch with what really matters to you, what you really think, goes back into the authenticity point that we made in the previous point that we talked about, but it also reinvigorates your own spark because you are actually learning and expanding your perspective. For me personally, I've started reading self-development and spiritual books again. I actually have the book right here. I have been tackling supernatural again. I've been trying so hard to finish this book for a long time, but the inspiration just wasn't there. But I am ready. Like, I'm tired of feeling like my creative spark has been dimmed. And a big reason is because I stopped reading. When we intake new information and learn new information, it sparks more avenues of thought, which means more avenues of inspiration and more avenues of what we want to create in this lifetime. I've probably been consistently reading again for the past month or so, which is why I wanted to include it in today's video, because when I tell you that educating yourself will never go without reward, I mean it. It's kind of like going to the gym, but for your brain. And you never regret going to the gym. You never regret reading and gaining knowledge. You only regret not doing it because your mind becomes uninspired. It becomes numb. It becomes complacent. If you're feeling like you have nothing to share, no creativity, no original thoughts, read. I promise it will bring that intellectual spark back into you, which then bleeds into a creative spark, which then bleeds into inspiration to actually make something happen with your life. Oh, I also wanted to add that I've also been actively listening to more podcasts because this is another way, if you don't like reading, that you can intake information that is so valuable, and it comes from real people that you can listen to and digest, especially when I take my daily walks, the walks that I talked about earlier in the video. Last but not least, cultivate some new experiences that take you out of the monotony of everyday routines, such as new hobbies or different activities that light you up. Inject that fun and passion back into your life, because that, at the end of the day, is what life is all about. Life is not supposed to be this rigid self-improvement routine day in and day out. Yes, that is essential, and I am such a fan of self-improvement. I am always looking for ways to improve, and I love the feeling of seeing my results, seeing that improvement in real time. But that is not what life is all about. We are supposed to be enjoying and finding the fun in life, and we're supposed to be living from a place of passion. Hola! Today I don't start work until 2, which is later than normal, so I kind of want to go get breakfast at a breakfast spot I don't usually go to. Going somewhere before work and like having a morning to myself, because I usually start work in the afternoon, allows me to feel like I didn't just spend my day at work. So when I say like breaking out of a monotonous routine, this is one of the ways that you can do it. Maybe you work early and you get off around like early afternoon or maybe 4 or 5. Take yourself somewhere different for dinner. Get something different for dinner. Do an activity you don't normally do after work. that makes you feel more like your whole life does not revolve around work. Like you actually have some time to yourself doing the things that you want to do, even when you have work. So we're going to go get breakfast, which I'm so excited. I'm going to get a sweet potato skillet that this place has because I'm on my luteal phase. You can see my acne. My skin is definitely stressed out, as it always is during the luteal phase. But we're gonna go get some yummy breakfast before I get ready for work. Without that passionate creative streak that humans have, we would not have art in all of its forms. And that's really what makes the human experience the human experience. It is what separates us from all other living beings on this planet, is our ability to create, to be artistic, to experience the joy that leads us to create things of value, things that inspire other people and have a ripple effect on generations to come. How many of us have a movie that we are so in love with that we consistently look back on because it makes us genuinely happy? It breathes life into us in a way that nothing rigid and structured, in a way that no like self-help book or whatever could actually do. For me, it's Spirited Away. I'm obsessed with Spirited Away. I always have been since I was very little. I watched that movie countless times. It's the only movie that I have purchased on YouTube so I can watch it whenever I want. Because of things like Spirited Away, I have felt the inspiration to create from my heart in a way that I may not if these types of things did not exist in our lives. Therefore, instilling creativity, passion, and fun back into our daily lives is important. Not letting ourselves become so monotonous and stick to the same structured routine every day. That is a surefire way to kill your inspiration. And at this time of the year, with the astrological energy, which I have talked about on my channel, we are being asked, no, almost forced, to tap back into the inner child. The inner child is the foundation of who we are. How we nurture the inner child is how we end up nurturing everything else in our lives. We cannot reject the inner child and expect something to come of our lives that feels fulfilling and joyous. I have been frequently looking back on pictures of myself when I was young in my little fairy costume, my little witch costume. And I have been reconnecting with the spirit of myself when I was younger. I'm recognizing how vibrant I was, how silly I was, how mischievous I was, how magical I was, and it has re-inspired me to really reignite her. So one of the ways I've been doing that is by getting back in touch with more of my witchy practices. My witchy magical practices, I don't care if somebody thinks that they're like woo-woo or they don't work or whatever, they make me so happy. They make me feel like magic really does exist. And I think that makes them worth doing. Whether they work on a scientific level or not, I don't care. All of this has reignited that mini me inside that indulges in the magic in life. And that alone has made me feel so much more fulfilled in my daily life. So whatever that is for you, some type of creative or passionate or fun hobby or activity or experience that indulges the inner child and makes you genuinely happy with no rhyme or reason is the ultimate hack to actually glowing up and to actually creating a life that is worth living. When you commit to doing this work for yourself, opportunities flow, ideas flow, everything changes for you, and you become wildly magnetic to all the possibilities of life. Let me know down below in the comments if you're also claiming your mid-year reset and you're also done playing around with your own life, like me. And once again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss future videos that allow you to elevate into your highest self on this channel. Until next time, adios.